For 3 years, I thought Chloe and I were solid. The perfect couple. Saturday night proved me wrong. We were curled up on the sofa, half watching some cheesy rom-com on Netflix, when she suddenly reached for the remote and hit pause. The room went quiet. Her eyes drifted, not at me, not at the TV, but somewhere over my shoulder, like she was bracing herself. Ethan, there's something I need to tell you. I didn't even look up at first. Her biting her lower lip? I'd seen that face a dozen times. Usually right before she confessed to splurging on a handbag that tanked our budget or maxing out another credit card. So I smirked and asked, "What did you buy this time?" My eyes still glued to a work email lighting up my phone. But her voice cracked. "It's not about money. It's about us. Our feelings." That got my attention. I put the phone down. Her hands were knotted together, her knuckles turning pale. "What about our feelings?" I asked, my chest tightening. She inhaled, like she had to borrow courage from the air around her. Then softly she dropped it. "I met someone. I think he might be my soulmate." The words echoed in my head, nonsense at first, until they finally sank in. "Your soulmate?" I repeated, almost laughing at how ridiculous it sounded. "You mean that old guy from your flower class? The one who said you had a gift?" She rolled her eyes, exasperated.
No, Ethan. Julian.
Julian Vance, the new creative director at my firm. When I'm with him, I feel alive again. There's this spark, this electricity. You wouldn't understand. I stared at her for 10 long seconds, then forced out a laugh.
Oh.
Electricity. So that's why the Con Edison bill's been sky high. Huh. I'm not joking. Her voice trembled as her eyes filled with tears. I know it sounds insane, but when I'm around him, I finally feel what I've been missing. That spark. And just like that, my smile slipped. The sarcasm drained out of me. She wasn't kidding. She was dead serious. "So," I said flatly, "you're telling me you're having an affair?" Her hands flew up.
No.
"It's not like that. We just talk. We share ideas. He gets me, Ethan. He understands what I want, what I dream about. He even said I remind him of his younger self, before life crushed his passion." I let out a bitter laugh, though my stomach was sinking. Crushed by reality? You mean our $5,000 mortgage? Or maybe the mountain of designer dresses hanging in your closet? Her tears spilled over.
See?
This is the problem. You never listen. You hide behind jokes. I'm trying to be honest with you, and all you do is mock me. Watching her cry, I felt this bone-deep exhaustion wash over me. 3 years of marriage. 3 years of busting my ass to give her the life she wanted. And here she was, telling me it wasn't enough because it lacked a spark. "Fine," I muttered, setting my phone aside. "No more jokes.
Tell me everything."
What have you and your soulmate been doing besides sharing ideas? Anything else? Kissing? Sleeping together?" She gasped like I'd slapped her. "How could you even think that?"
No.
What we have is deeper. A meeting of the minds. Not sordid like you're trying to twist it. "So, an emotional affair doesn't count as cheating?" I shot back. She froze, fumbling for words. Then mumbled, "I just thought I should be honest with you." I couldn't breathe. I pushed off the sofa and headed for the balcony. "Thank you for your honesty," I said stiffly. "I need some air." "Ethan, where are you going?" Panic edged her voice. "Out for a smoke. Don't worry, I won't be long. Looks like we've got a lot of feelings to unpack." The night air hit me cold. I hadn't touched a cigarette in years, but my hands shook as I lit one. Each drag scraped my throat raw, but the ice in my chest only hardened. Soulmate.
Spark.
Electricity. Who the hell did she think I'd been breaking myself for? Staying late at the office, grinding every day, just to pay for overpriced lattes and rent in this condo she loved? And now some creative director had the power to make her feel alive? I smoked it down to the filter before heading back in. Chloe was curled on the sofa, tear-streaked and fragile, like she was the one who'd been betrayed. And I wanted to scream. What did she have to cry about? because I hadn't joined her in a heart-to-heart about our missing spiritual resonance. Marriage felt like a scam. I thought we were building a future together. Turns out, she was shopping for sparks. "So, what do you want to do now?" she asked timidly. What did I want to do? Flip the sofa. Shatter the TV. Anything. But then I remembered the pact we'd made years ago, the naive little promise on our wedding day. If one of us ever fell for someone else, we'd be honest. No cheating. No lies. Just part ways. I stared at her. "Do you remember that promise?" She nodded, quietly. "So you and Julian, was it really just talking?" Her eyes darted down. "He held my hand once. At the coffee shop. But he let go right away." The way she said it, you'd think she was confessing to some sacred, accidental sin. I nodded. Silent. The fight drained out of me. 3 years of love, countless nights and sacrifices, and none of it could compete with one man's touch and the promise of a spark. "Okay. I get it," I muttered, turning toward the den. "I'll sleep in here tonight. We should cool off." Her sobs followed me down the hall. "Ethan, aren't we going to talk about this? Don't you have anything to say?" I paused in the doorway, but didn't turn back. "Say what?" "Hope you and your soulmate don't blow a fuse. Good night." That was it. I spent the night on the pull-out couch, staring at the ceiling until dawn, the weight of her words replaying again and again. And by Monday morning, with dark circles under my eyes, one truth gnawed at me. Sometimes the person you fight hardest for isn't fighting for you at all. By Monday, I was running on fumes, dark circles under my eyes, my mood so foul that even my assistant tiptoed around me, terrified to bring me my morning coffee. But work didn't care about my crumbling marriage. Our firm was in the middle of a massive negotiation. The other company had just appointed a new president to oversee the deal, a name whispered in the industry with equal parts awe and fear. A shark. That afternoon, I walked into the executive conference room, laptop in hand, failing, to shove Chloe and her soulmate out of my head. The project manager was mid-presentation when the door opened and the room shifted. My boss jumped to his feet, his smile so wide it looked painful. "Ms. Sterling, welcome. We're honored to have you." I glanced up and froze. My blood turned to ice. A woman strode in, heels clicking like a metronome against the polished floor. Her suit, black and razor-sharp, fit her tall frame like armor. She carried herself with a calm, commanding grace, her eyes sweeping the room with a cool detachment that left no one untouched. And then I saw her face. Ava Sterling. 10 years vanished in an instant. Back in college, Ava was the untouchable one. The girl every guy wanted and none could have. Brilliant. Beautiful.
Proud.
I'd spent 2 years orbiting her like a desperate satellite, too afraid to speak, too in awe to try. Until 1 week before graduation, when I finally confessed. She'd looked at me with those steady, unreadable eyes and said, "Ethan, you're a good guy. But what you want isn't what I want." Then she was gone. Overseas. Out of my life. Out of reach. And all I was left with was regret. Over the years, her memory dulled to an ache I'd learned to live with. I buried it under Chloe's warmth, her persistence, her easy laughter. Ava became just another what if. Until now. And here she was, 10 years later, walking into my conference room. Not as the girl I once chased, but as the president of the company my firm was desperate to land. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second. Nothing. No flicker of recognition. No emotion. Just professional courtesy as she moved on to shake my boss's hand. I sat frozen, palms slick with sweat, barely hearing the meeting around me. When Ava spoke, her voice cut through the room like glass, calm, precise, every question a blade. My boss stumbled, my colleague squirmed, and all I could think was, the aloof girl I remembered had become a force of nature. Radiant, powerful, untouchable all over again. When the meeting ended, I lingered, torn between running and hoping she'd notice me. I was halfway to the door when I heard it.
Ethan.
Her voice. My name. I spun too fast. There she was, standing by the door, waiting as the last people filed out. "Miss Sterling," I stammered. Her lips curved into the faintest smile, softer than the corporate mask she'd worn all meeting, carrying just enough warmth to make my chest tighten. "Long time no see. I wasn't expecting you here." "Me neither," I admitted, heat rushing to my face. My marriage was disintegrating, my confidence in shreds. And here she was, dazzling, untouchable, my client. "I look forward to working with you," she said, all business again, extending her hand. I shook it quickly. "Absolutely, Miss Sterling. We'll give it our all." Her hand was cool, her grip firm, and for one suspended second, the world seemed to fall away. 10 years of distance collapsed into that single touch. Then it was gone. "I've reviewed your preliminary materials," she said briskly. "Solid work. My team will follow up." Her tone gave nothing away. She didn't ask how I'd been, didn't acknowledge the past. And maybe that was for the best. What could I even say? "Hey, remember me? The loser who confessed his feelings before graduation? The guy whose wife just declared she's found her soulmate?" Instead, I forced a smile. "Of course, Miss Sterling. We'll cooperate fully." She gave a curt nod, heels striking the floor as she left with a kind of authority that left cracks in her wake. I stood there, hollow, my colleagues eyeing me with thinly veiled curiosity. "You know Ava Sterling, Ethan?" my boss prodded. "We went to college together," I muttered. "Didn't really know her. Been a long time." I escaped to my office, closing the door before the weight of it all crushed me. My back was damp with sweat, my mind a storm. The next few days blurred together. At home, Chloe hovered, cooking breakfasts, sending desperate texts, trying to stitch us back together with the same spark she'd claimed was gone. I answered with polite indifference.
Cold. Detached.
I'd moved into the den permanently. You can't reheat a meal that's gone cold. At work, there was no avoiding Ava. The project consumed us. She was everywhere, sharp, efficient, demanding. She gave nothing, forgave nothing. And yet sometimes, just sometimes, I'd catch her looking at me a second too long. And every time I wondered, did she remember? Or was I still the boy who was never enough? There was something in Ava's eyes I couldn't read. Not nostalgia, not warmth, more like scrutiny. A few nights later, after a long project meeting, I was the last one packing up the conference room when the door opened again. Ava stepped back in, reaching for a tablet she'd left behind. "Ethan," she said, "no title, no formalities." I looked up. "Your head's not in the game," she told me bluntly, her brow creasing ever so slightly. "This project is critical. I can't have your personal mess spilling into the work." I froze, embarrassed. She was right, of course. My life was a wreck, and it was showing. "My apologies, Miss Sterling," I murmured, trying to salvage dignity. "Things at home are complicated, but I'll get it together." She didn't ask what was wrong, didn't offer sympathy. She just looked at me and said, "We're adults. Keep your personal life at home." Then she picked up her tablet and walked out. I stood there, cheeks burning. Being lectured by the woman I once worshipped was humiliating in ways I didn't have words for. But strangely, I didn't feel angry. Her cold professionalism hit me like ice water. Harsh, but necessary. A reminder that life could fall apart, but the work still had to get done. A few days later came the networking event. The kind where everyone brought their polished plus ones. I told Chloe flatly, "Work thing tonight. Don't wait up." I didn't invite her. She started to protest, but the words died in her throat. A shadow crossed her face, and some bitter part of me almost smiled. Hurts, doesn't it? The event was a blur of expensive suits and sparkling dresses. I stood alone with a bourbon, feeling out of place, when I saw him. Julian Vance, the man who'd set my marriage on fire. He looked every bit the corporate peacock, tailored suit, hair slicked with product, charm painted across his face like a cheap mask. And he was circling Ava, leaning in, smiling, performing his little routine. I watched from the corner, drink untouched. Ava, cool and distant, held a club soda like a shield. She nodded occasionally, polite but detached. Her eyes were somewhere far away, cold enough to freeze him in place. She wasn't impressed. Not even close. Still, ball rose in my throat. This is the man Chloe calls her soulmate? This shallow, posturing fraud? I slipped outside for air, but voices stopped me. Around the corner, near the restrooms, I heard Julian's laugh. He was with a colleague. Can't believe that loser Ethan chased Ava back in the day and struck out. Pathetic. My stomach turned. Keep your voice down, his friend muttered.
Why?
It's hilarious. Poor guy's bad luck. The one that got away, untouchable. And his wife. Let's just say Chloe's not so untouchable. A few compliments and she's putty. Ethan's just a boring ATM in a suit. My fists curled, nails digging deep into my palms. The other man sounded uneasy. Careful, Julian. Don't push it too far. He's a director. Julian scoffed. So what? When this project's done, he's nothing. Now Ava Sterling, she's a real challenge. Maybe this time I'll even take the one that got away from him. His voice dipped low, oozing arrogance. That was it. The blood roared in my ears. Insult me?
Fine.
Insult Chloe? We were finished, but she didn't deserve that. But Ava? He didn't get to drag her name into his filth. I stepped from the shadows just as Julian strutted out. His smug grin faltered the second he saw me, quickly morphing into oily charm. Ethan, fancy seeing you? I didn't let him finish. I grabbed a fistful of his starched shirt and drove my right fist straight into his face. The crack echoed, followed by gasps from bystanders. Blood spurted from his nose as he reeled back against the wall. Are you insane? He sputtered. Insane? I yanked him forward, slamming another punch into his gut. He doubled over, gagging. You're the one who's insane. Messing with my wife, running your mouth about Ava Sterling. Who the hell do you think you are? People rushed in, trying to pull me off him. But I was seeing red. I wanted to keep going. Julian stumbled upright, face swelling, blood on his shirt. He jabbed a trembling finger at me. You're finished, Ethan. I'll press charges. This is assault. Go ahead, I roared, tearing my tie from my neck. Tell the cops how you harass women and wreck families. You garbage. Chaos erupted. Security, management, voices everywhere. My boss looked pale, bowing his head in frantic apologies to Ava's team. And then Ava appeared. Her gaze swept the scene, Julian bloodied, me restrained, my chest heaving. Her brow tightened, but her voice was calm, sharp as a blade. What happened? The noise died instantly. Julian got in first, clutching his nose. Miss Sterling, look at me. He attacked me without reason. Violent, unhinged. He has no place on this project. I scoffed, ready to unload every word I'd overheard, but Ava cut in before I could speak. Her eyes locked on Julian, her tone icy. Director Vance, I don't care about your personal drama, but making a spectacle at a professional event is unacceptable. Then she turned to me. Her gaze didn't soften. And that goes for you too, Director Cole. My stomach dropped. But before despair could swallow me, she turned to her assistant. Her voice clipped, decisive. Check the cameras. And pull any audio from this area. I want to know exactly what happened. Ava's gaze swept the room one last time before settling on Julian. Her voice was steady, controlled. If there were inappropriate remarks or actions, our company will handle it internally. And just like that, the color drained from Julian's face. He tried to protest, clinging to his usual arrogance. Miss Sterling, you can't just take his word for it. Which is why I require evidence. Ava cut in, smooth as glass. Then she turned, addressing the stunned crowd. My apologies for the disruption. Please, enjoy the rest of the evening. The room exhaled, the noise slowly returning to normal as she motioned to her staff. Take Director Vance to get cleaned up. Director Cole with me. I shrugged off the hands holding me, straightened my suit jacket, and followed her into a quiet meeting room nearby. The door shut, sealing us off from the chaos. She crossed her arms, her eyes locked on mine.
Now.
Tell me why you hit him. The fight drained out of me all at once, leaving only exhaustion. Looking into her calm, unreadable eyes, I took a breath and repeated everything I'd overheard, word for word. When I finished, she didn't flinch. She just nodded. I see. You don't believe me? I asked, bitter. I believe you, she replied evenly. I've heard things about his character. I just didn't realize he was this stupid. Her gaze sharpened. But your response was just as foolish. Violence doesn't solve anything. It only gives him ammunition. I couldn't argue. I knew she was right. It was stupid. But in that moment, it hadn't mattered. Then, out of nowhere, she asked, have you dealt with things at home? I gave a humorless laugh. About that? He's the soulmate she found. I gestured vaguely toward the door, where Julian had been. For the first time, Ava's composure cracked just a little, one eyebrow lifting, the faintest flicker of amusement in her eyes. Is that so? She murmured, almost sarcastic. She has unique taste. Before I could reply, my phone buzzed violently against the table.
Chloe.
I silenced it, but it rang again immediately, insistent. Someone must have told her what happened. Ava's gaze slid to my phone. Answer it. On speaker. I hesitated, then pressed accept. Chloe's voice burst through, frantic, breathless, and shrill. Ethan, where are you? They said you hit Julian.
Why?
Was it because of us? How could you do that? You're a barbarian. Do you have any idea how this could ruin his career? You need to go apologize right now. Her words came like knives. Not once did she ask if I was okay. She was crying for him, defending him. Something inside me froze over. The last warmth in my chest turned to ice. Chloe, I said, my voice calm, detached, unrecognizable even to me. I want a divorce. Silence. The kind of silence that rings in your ears. Then, finally, a broken whisper. What did you just say? You heard me. Her breath hitched, trembling. Because of this? Ethan, listen, I know I shouldn't have kept things from you, but nothing happened with Julian. It was just an emotional connection. Just holding hands. Just talking. Just feeling alive again? I finished for her, the words flat, cold. It's over, Chloe. I'm done. On the other end, she crumbled. Her voice fractured into sobs. Ethan, no. I love you. I was lost, that's all. He confused me. I never wanted to leave you. We can't divorce over this. I don't love you anymore, Chloe, I said quietly, slicing through her pleas. Not like a husband. The moment you told me you'd found your soulmate, whatever was left of my feelings died. Her sobs broke into raw, ugly cries. I didn't flinch. I glanced at Ava. She stood silently, arms still folded, her face unreadable. It was like she was watching a transaction play out, not a marriage unravel. The thought was almost funny, in a cruel, twisted way. My lawyer will contact you about the assets, I said at last. I hope you and your connection find happiness. And I ended the call. The room fell into a heavy silence. I dragged a hand down my face, exhaling. Sorry about that, Miss Sterling. I won't let my personal life interfere with work again. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then her voice came, cool but edged with something new. Your private life is yours. But what you said you overheard, do you have proof? I heard it with my own ears. Maybe the security feed caught the audio. And as for him and Chloe, check his messages. I doubt this is the first time he's pulled something like this. She nodded once, a hard glint sparking in her eyes. I'll handle it. I won't let someone like him jeopardize this project. Then, after a beat, her voice sharpened again. As for you, your actions were understandable, but they were a breach of conduct. You'll be formally reprimanded. Your quarterly bonus will be docked. Any objections? I shook my head.
None.
I deserve it. Good. She glanced at her watch, already moving on. That's all for tonight. Go home.
Rest.
I expect you in the office on time tomorrow, focused. Understood. I nodded. And as I turned to leave, the only thought echoing in my mind was how surreal it all felt. My marriage collapsing in front of the one woman I once worshipped, while she stood there calm, unreadable, and already planning the next move. Sterling said nothing more. She just turned and walked out, leaving me standing in the silence, my phone buzzing again in my pocket.
Chloe.
I switched it off and shoved it deep down, finally blessedly quiet. Outside the hotel, the night air hit me like a reset. My knuckles ached, a dull throb from the punch I'd planted on Julian's smug face. But the truth? It wasn't pain I felt. It was release. Saying divorce out loud had been like cutting a rope that had been dragging me under. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't drowning. The next morning, Ava's promise became reality. The reprimand landed on my desk, bonus gone, censure notice sent to the entire company. I didn't flinch. I didn't fight. I deserved it. Around the office, the looks came: pity, curiosity, whispers behind half-shut doors. I ignored them all and buried myself in work. Meanwhile, Ava moved like a force of nature. Somehow, she got her hands on the hallway recordings. The audio wasn't perfect, but it didn't need to be. Paired with Julian's reputation and a few quiet conversations, it cracked the dam wide open. Women from his own company came forward, their stories echoing what I already knew: his friendliness had always been a mask for predation. And just like that, Julian Vance was finished. Fired for misconduct. His own firm sent a letter to ours, a polite but pointed rebuke about the quality of our personnel. It was Ava's masterstroke, cleaning house on her side while putting my boss firmly in check. In one move, she erased Julian and tightened her grip on the project. As for Chloe, her downfall came slower, messier. When I said the word divorce, she spiraled. First came the tearful apologies. Then the rage. Then threats. I answered none of it, except the legal details. I moved out, got a rental close to the office, and let the lawyers take over. Reality, however, didn't wait long to hit her. Without my income, her curated life unraveled fast. The condo, the car, the endless credit card bills, all of it toppled. And her soulmate? Her shining star? Julian didn't have the time or interest to play house. He was unemployed, disgraced, and when she turned to him for comfort, he blocked her. Worse, he mocked her behind her back. Told friends she was a middle-aged fool who believed she could be more than a fling. When those words got back to her, the fantasy shattered. The man she'd sworn was her destiny was nothing more than a cheap hustler with a good smile. She tried to crawl back. Showed up outside my office, outside my building, mascara streaking down her face, begging for another chance. I looked at her and tried to reconcile the broken figure in front of me with the woman who once claimed she'd found her soulmate. I felt a flicker of pity, but it was gone as quickly as it came. "It's over, Chloe," I told her. "The papers are almost finalized." She clutched my arm, nails digging in, her voice raw.
Please, Ethan.
I was wrong. Let's just try again. I swear I'll never be that stupid again. I pulled away. We can't go back. The moment you made that choice, it ended. Not every mistake can be forgiven. Not every wound heals. Her eyes were wide, hollow, desperate. 3 years and you throw it away just like that? You threw it away first, I said flatly. You wanted a soulmate. You wanted more than me. And now you're crying about years when you were the one who walked away. She crumbled onto the sidewalk, sobbing. I didn't reach for her. I wasn't that man anymore. I called her sister to come get her and left her there. Later, I heard she moved back with her parents. Got a safe, dull job. Lived quietly, frugally. The woman who once burned with passion had finally been consumed by her own flames. Julian's fall was uglier. Blacklisted, unwanted, desperate. He tried one last time to needle Ava, to drag her into his spiral. She answered with a restraining order and the threat of a lawsuit. He vanished from the city not long after, a ghost of the slick man who thought he was untouchable.
And me?
With the divorce finalized, I poured everything into my work. The project with Ava's company became my sole focus, not just for my career, but for something deeper, something I refused to name. Failure wasn't an option. Not in front of her. Ava remained.
Ava.
Brilliant, distant, demanding. She could tear apart months of effort in a few cold sentences and then move on without a flicker of doubt. But then there were the moments. Small, almost invisible things that made me wonder. Like the night she shredded a proposal I'd stayed up all night building. I was sitting there, exhausted, staring at the ruins of my work, red-eyed and furious. I could only nod, muttering, "Yes, Miss Sterling. I'll revise it immediately." She closed her tablet, studying me for a beat. Then, almost out of nowhere, she asked, "Have you had breakfast?" I blinked.
No.
"Go eat," she said, tone flat, almost clinical. "Low blood sugar impairs judgment. There's a decent coffee shop downstairs." And just like that, she was gone, off to her next meeting, leaving me wondering if that was concern or just her way of protecting the project. But little moments kept happening. A black coffee arriving at my desk after 2 sleepless nights, sent through her assistant. A subtle nod after a big presentation, followed by 2 quiet words, "Good work." Funny how those 2 words from her meant more to me than signing a $1 million client ever had. I found myself watching her differently. Not like the infatuated kid from college, but with a mix of admiration and curiosity. The way she dismantled weak arguments with precision. The way she could command a room without ever raising her voice. She was powerful, impossibly so. But beneath it, I sensed something else, an edge of solitude. When the project wrapped, we had a dinner. No snakes like Julian in sight, just a team celebrating. And for once, Ava felt approachable. After a drink or 2, our conversation slipped into something easier. "You've changed a lot," I said, bold from the whiskey. Her eyebrow arched. "How so?" "You're more formidable, harder to read." That faint smile appeared.
People change.
"So have you." The boy who once stammered through a confession now throws punches at company events. I winced. "Let's not talk about that." "It was unexpected," she admitted, turning slightly in the dim light. "Foolish, maybe, but at least it showed you still had some fight." It was the closest thing to a compliment she'd ever given me. My heart did a ridiculous flip. Later, as we waited for our cars, the night air cooled the glow of the evening. "Thank you," I told her. "For what?" "Not just the project. For the way you handled everything. With Julian." She paused. "I made the logical choice. And I don't tolerate people like him." Her car pulled up. She opened the door, then turned back. "Ethan, let the past go. Look forward." There was something in her eyes I couldn't name. Something that stayed with me long after she drove away. Weeks passed. The project wound down. Our meetings shifted online. Sometimes we sparred over details, her logic sharp, my defenses stubborn. And yet, those arguments thrilled me. Slowly, the faded memory of my old crush gave way to something new. A woman who was real, brilliant, and endlessly complicated. But my divorce was still a fresh wound, and Ava remained unreadable. Our exchanges stayed professional until the night of the annual charity gala. I knew she'd be there. My company had a table, and on a whim, I showed up. I spotted her instantly. Dressed in a simple black gown, elegant and understated, commanding the room with ease. I kept my distance at first, drink in hand, watching her the way one watches fire, drawn in, knowing it could burn. Then she saw me, excused herself, and walked over.
"Ethan."
"Good to see you here." "Ava," I nodded, raising my glass. "Just taking in the scene?" We slipped into conversation, easier than it had ever been. And then, like a storm breaking through clear skies, I saw her.
Chloe. Thin. Worn.
An old dress hanging off her frame, her eyes wide and unhinged. She marched straight toward us, her voice cutting through the ballroom like glass. "Ethan," she cried, drawing every eye in the room. I stiffened, instinctively shifting in front of Ava. But Chloe's rage wasn't aimed at me. It was locked onto her. "It was you," she hissed, face twisted with resentment. "His old college flame. Ethan only divorced me because you came back. You think you can just waltz in with your money, your power, and steal another woman's husband? Gasps rippled. Conversations died. The ballroom froze around us. Chloe, what the hell are you talking about? I snapped. We're divorced. This has nothing to do with her. But Chloe shoved me aside, finger trembling as she pointed at Ava. If she hadn't shown up, you never would have left me. You wanted her all along. Don't pretend you're some saint. You were probably sleeping together before Julian. You're both liars. Cheaters. The words hit like acid, burning the air. I could feel the judgmental stares prickling against my skin. And Ava? She hadn't moved. She stood calm, collected, her expression carved from ice. When Chloe finally ran out of breath, Ava spoke, quiet, but with a voice that cut sharper than any shout. Ma'am, she said evenly, your marriage fell apart because of your choices. Not mine. This is a charity gala, not a stage for your grievances. And your behavior tonight, this public harassment and slander, will be addressed by my lawyer. The room held its breath. Chloe faltered, stunned by the sheer force of Ava's composure. But the storm in her wasn't done. Her voice broke into a scream. Your money can't. Chloe spat, but Ava barely flinched. She raised a hand, calm, almost bored. Security. Within seconds, 2 guards moved in, firm yet polite, escorting Chloe as she screamed and struggled, her voice echoing off the crystal chandeliers. In less than 2 minutes, it was over. The silence she left behind was heavier than the noise. Ava didn't miss a beat. She plucked a glass of champagne from a passing tray, turned to the crowd, and with a small nod said, "A slight disturbance. My apologies for the interruption." The room exhaled. She had turned a scandal into a footnote, and I stood there burning with shame, rage, and an ache of apology I didn't know how to voice. Ava, I'm so sorry, I began. It has nothing to do with you. She cut me off, her voice sharp but steady. This is what happens when you don't make a clean break. I had no answer. She was right. The night ended with me outside, the chill air useless against the chaos in my head. Then, a familiar car rolled up. The back window slid down. Ava's voice, "Get in." I hesitated, then obeyed. The car was silent, the hum of the engine filling the space between us. I tried again. "I'm sorry. I never thought she'd find you, let alone." "She's not doing well," Ava said, eyes fixed ahead. "It's easier to blame someone else than face your own mistakes." I laughed bitterly. Yeah. But then she turned, her gaze steady on mine. "But you share the responsibility too." The words hit harder than Chloe's outburst. "What?" "A relationship doesn't collapse because of just one person," she said, matter of fact, like she was delivering project notes. "Maybe you ignored her needs. Maybe you weren't a match from the start. Your mistake was letting it fester until it exploded, in the worst, most public way possible." It was brutal, and it was true. I had buried myself in work, ignored the cracks, and hoped they'd disappear. They hadn't. "You're right," I admitted quietly. The car stopped in front of my building. I reached for the door when she said my name. "Ethan." I turned. Her face was half-lit by the street lamps, unreadable, shadow and light. I was wrong back then. I froze. "When we graduated," she continued, voice softer now, "I told you we weren't right for each other. That wasn't the whole truth. The truth was, I didn't think you were ready for the future I wanted. And I didn't have time to wait for you to grow up." My heart kicked hard in my chest, blood roaring in my ears. She caught the look on my face and gave the faintest smile, sad, wistful. "I'm telling you now so you don't spend your life thinking you were just some loser who never had a chance." The window slid up. The car pulled away, and I was left on the curb, stunned, her words replaying on a loop until dawn. When the project ended, I disappeared. A long drive through the desert, endless skies stretching above me, stripped everything down to size. The divorce, the gossip, the scandal, all of it shrank against that vast horizon. Out there, I decided, I couldn't be the man who worshipped from a distance, or the man who ignored cracks until everything collapsed. Back in New York, I quit. My boss was shocked, but I knew I couldn't live in Ava's shadow anymore. I started my own firm. The first year was a blur of exhaustion and exhilaration, but slowly, it paid off. I still saw her at events. Polite nods, short exchanges, the occasional article I'd send her that she'd answer with one sharp line. Sparse, but constant. And in that space, something unspoken grew. A year later, my firm won an award. At the party, I was surrounded by congratulations, but my eyes kept drifting to the door. She'd said she might come. And then she did. Sharp suit, wool coat, every inch the woman who owned any room she walked into. She smiled, handed me a slim box. A little something, she said. Inside, a fountain pen. The exact one I'd once mentioned in passing months ago. Thank you, I said, warmth flooding through me. You didn't have to. Of course I did. We talked.
We laughed.
And when she left, I walked her out into the biting winter air. Her cheeks were pink from the cold, her eyes brighter than I remembered. Ava, I said, stopping her. Am I mature enough now? The question hung there, raw, clumsy, but true. She paused. A flicker passed between us, recognition, memory, something more. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she tilted her head, a half-smile forming. What do you think? And in that silence, I realized it wasn't an ending. It was the start of something entirely new. I've got the patience now, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. And the drive to become the man I should have been years ago. I'm not going to miss my chance this time. I'm not waiting another 10 years. She watched me, unreadable, the city lights catching in her eyes. A gust of wind pushed a loose strand of hair across her face. Instinct took over. I reached out, brushing it back, my fingertips grazing her skin. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. I swallowed hard, chest tight. Miss Sterling, I said quietly, am I finally qualified to ask you to dinner? Just the two of us. No work talk allowed. The moment stretched, timeless, as if the whole city held its breath with me. Then her lips curved. Not the polite smile she gave boardrooms, not the measured one she saved for industry galas. This was different.
Real. Bright.
A smile that lit up her entire face. Given your newfound patience, she said softly, I'll allow it. I couldn't help the grin that broke across mine. The night was still cold, the wind still sharp, but for the first time in years, something inside me felt alive again. The barren desert I'd been carrying in my chest was gone, replaced by the first signs of spring. Ava Sterling. A year ago, she was the one that got away. This time, I wasn't going to let her.